So, welcome to the platform, Ed.
Well, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. All right, so getting right into it now. So, just so my recollection is correct, you're a tattoo artist, but you're also a singer, correct?
Nope, the band's Tattoo Billy, but no, I'm not a tattoo artist.
Oh, okay. So, how did you come up with the name?
Well, it started probably about 1993, somewhere around there. We were trying to come up with a name to stick by because we already ran out all of our other names by being so horrible performers that we're like, we got to find a new name. We're starting to get good, so let's pick a name we can stick with now. And I was coming up with I said Psycho Hillbilly is what I said. I was like, let's do something crazy, And my dad, who was the singer at the time, said, how about Tattoo Billy? And I was like, well, that sounds good. So we ran with Tattoo Billy. It had a ring to it. And then the only thing was I was the only guy in the band that had tattoos. So when we started playing out shows and stuff, everybody thought I was Billy. So everybody was coming up to me like, hey, Billy, how can you play this? Can you play that? And I wouldn't answer them that day. Didn't you hear me talking to you? And then I caught on. Everybody was thinking I was Tattoo Billy because I was the only guy in the band with tattoos. So, yeah. So we've been that since probably 92, 93, somewhere around that range.
Okay, okay. All right. And how long have you been an artist?
I started playing bass guitar when I was like 17 years old. And started off in a Christian rock band and played with it, for a while. And then my dad, he was kind of a well-known country underground artist, through the Midwest, and he was like, you're playing this rock and roll music, you're not making any money. He goes, what about you just join me and you'll at least get out and make a little bit of money, while you're playing. So I was like, all right. So I joined my dad and started playing clubs while I was still in high school. But
Okay.
back
All right.
then, nobody really was like, let me see your ID or let me, you know what I mean? It just, you know, but he had me playing some pretty interesting places. Let's say that.
Okay. And I take it your genre is country music, correct?
It's kind of like a country rock. Yeah. So
Okay.
I wouldn't, yeah, more of a country rock, I would say.
Okay. And so your new song, um, it was played in the movie Kiss of Vampire.
It was one of our older songs. It was a song called "Cutting Loose,"
Okay.
and it was a movie. It was directed by a guy named Joe Torrentore, and he was an actor too when he was younger, and he became a director. But he was like, if you ever seen the movie The Sting with Robert Redford and stuff like that, he was the Black Hand gunman in the movie The Sting that saved Robert Redford's life. And he was in The Champ with Ricky Schroeder. He had a bunch of different, movies that he acted in, and then he was a director of this movie, and it had like Mathias Hues, Martin Kove, who was the bad trainer from the Karate Kid movie, Costa Mandalore from the Saw movie, Daniel Goddard from Young and the Restless. So it had a bunch of different actors like that in it.
Okay. All right. All
Yep.
right. And then you were featured in the Fangoria magazine.
They had a write up of the movie, a little bit of a write up in the movie, and Fangoria, because they had a lot of kind of somewhat underground big name actors in the horror genre that was in the movie. So they wrote it up, and had a little bit of a little write up on it talking about the movie.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. So what made you want to get into music?
Uh, I think it was more or less, I was 17 years old and I was like, man, there's a couple girls I like. There's a girl I liked. They were into bands. And I was like, well, if I'm ever going to get a girlfriend, I guess I better start playing bass or something, or, I'm never going to find a girlfriend.
So did it
So it's
work?
kind of something like that. Yeah.
Did it work?
Yeah, it worked for a minute,
Okay.
you know.
Okay. Cool. All right. So what are some of the pros and cons of being in entertainment?
Uh, Pros is for me, I like to create and write and do my own thing, and And I think that's a pro to it. If you're being creative, even if you got to play some cover songs in your sets, if you're combining your original material and you're doing something beyond just playing other people's music, I mean that's a pro for me. The con is if you try to make a living at it, it is a very, very tough living at it. I went that route for a while. I don't do that anymore. I'm not a full-time musician anymore, so even though I've had opportunities to get back on the road and do stuff like that, I'm not interested in that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but that's the con. I think a lot of people run down the dream, they run it down, and then it's good to keep dreaming, but it's good to not dream yourself into a bad, you know what I mean, situation.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, yeah. It could be
Like,
overwhelming. Yeah.
yeah. It's kind of like what you hear about in, like, I've been around enough actors, and it's like even with the new single you've seen, Frisky-whiskey. You know, I don't know if you've seen the video. It's got uh, a great actor named Jonathan Joss, and he was the voice of John Redcorn from the King of the Hill cartoon, and he's in he's Badface in the new Tulsa King with Sylvester Stallone. And great actor, great talent. So people like, you know what I mean, him. It's been a good, you know, he keeps running the dream down, and he's been successful, and he's a very nice guy. So, you know, if you ever need any video, he does do side work too. So if you ever need a guy to help you with a video or something like that, look him up, Jonathan Joss. That's Joss, and he's a great guy, and he don't have no ego or anything like that, what you find with a lot of Hollywood guys. But he's a guy you know, I look up to just for being one of the nice guys in the industry.
Okay, cool. So I'll have to have you email that to me because I'm sure I'm not going to remember the spelling.
Right.
So, what advice would you give to an upcoming artist?
Do please yourself. Don't worry about what other people think. If you listen to other people, you'll never do anything. So to me, it's do it. And if you like it, and if you're a good judge of yourself, be honest with yourself, be honest with your music. You know, would you buy it or would you listen to it? Would you, you know, but that's the main thing. Write for you, play for you, and you will generate your own audience. But
Right.
if you're trying to please everybody, like with it, you know, I can't count how many times people say, well, you can't sing. You know what I mean? And then have somebody else come up to me and say, hey, you're a really good singer.
Right.
So, you know, you can't listen to people. You just got to listen to your own self. Create for you, and you will find that group of people that will be drawn to what you do.
Got it. All right. So, what are some of the new things that we can look forward to? You might have coming up. Are you going to be doing any tours?
I'm in the studio right now. I got a great producer. He's the one that produced Frisky-whiskey for me, and he did a lot of studio work. He's been in the studio, did studio work with George Clinton, the Pixies, all kinds of different guys, and he's the one that produced Frisky-whiskey, and we're working on a new one right now. And his name's Matt Gracie, and thankfully for him, you know, that's a guy that, hey, when everybody else gave up on me, this is a producer that came, and he believed in what I was writing and liked what I was doing and said, we need to do this. And so, you know, back to basically what I said before, you know, never give up, no matter how old you get, you know what I mean? Keep doing
Yeah.
what you like to do. And somebody's going to come along, they'll believe in what you're doing too, and they'll work with you, you know? So, because with me, the band formed in, like I said, early 90s. We stayed together almost the same lineup to 2014. In 2014, my father, who was the main lead singer, and he passed away of brain cancer.
Okay.
So that was you know, and at that same year, my wife passed away of a heart attack. So this is all in 2014. So it was like the band was down, my wife passed away, and so you're like, you know, is this going to keep going or what? You know, as in a band. And then another one of the guitar players died of cancer. My cousin, the year after that, in 2015. So I had two of the band members go out. And then the original guitar player, he unfortunately passed away probably about 2 years ago. He he committed suicide, which was sad, but he was a great, phenomenal guitar player. So at that point, we had formed up the band. My wife sings with me now too. She's just a great singer. She's actually the good singer, is what I always say. I mean, she's got a good voice. But we formed up the band again. We had a different spelling of it at the time. It was like Tatoo. Billy as spelt like a girl, Billie at that time, because we really wasn't doing much of the original Tatoo Billy material anymore. You know what I mean? Because it was all new members. And so we were doing a lot of covers. We were playing like Led Zeppelin. We were playing, which was good stuff, you know what I mean? And it went over really well. But it got to the point where it's like we were playing a lot, and then the drummer, he had like a medical issue. He had to drop out of the band, and then the guitar player didn't want to continue on without playing with that drummer, so I had to reform again. So right now we're in basically a reformation stage, but it's back to where we're focusing on original stuff again. We're focusing back where it really needs to be, because you can play. It's like I tell people, you can play 1 million shows, you can play a 1 million bars. And like I said, when I started with my dad, it was 9 to 2. And we played 9 to 2. It was Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, 3 nights a week. And so we were playing 9 to 2, that many hours, you know what I mean? And kind of lost my point, but in playing like that, that's how we developed our style too. But that's how we came up for material. We started writing material and got out, and then kind of lost it, like I said, after all the band members passed away. But then again, we're back into it again, and we're back finding that creativeness to keep pushing and keeping the name alive. To me, and that's where it's at with me. I don't think like, hey, I've had a lot of good things happen in music. I was in a book with a #1 artist in another country. I had songs in a couple of movies. I had, you know what I mean? I've done some little things, you know what I mean? Which I'm very appreciative of. But, you know, it's like, to me, it's about recording. It's about putting your work down. And that's where I was getting to. If you're a painter and you're just sketching and you're not putting the paint to the board, you know what I mean? You're missing out. Right. And that's the same way if like playing shows. I can play 1 million bars of cover songs, and people say, hey, you remember that one band? They were really good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you're forgotten. But if you record them songs, just like with me and my dad, since the 1990s all the way up to now, I can still put that CD in, or I can put it on streaming. I still hear my dad's voice. I still hear them memories. And if we would have never done that, it would have just been gone. I'd just be talking, hey, my dad was such a great singer. Everybody's like, yeah, everybody talks about their dad or whoever is great at this or they great at that. But then people will hear it be like, you're right, man, your dad really could sing, you know. And so that's what it's about, is creating your art, getting it, record it, getting it, you know, preserved. Or when you're gone, somebody else might like to hear you.
Right.
Which,
so,
you know.
How old were you when you started performing with your dad?
I was 17.
17?
And
okay.
Yeah. And the first show, and back then, I mean, this is like 93, maybe 92. No, it was 92. It might have been earlier than that, to tell you the truth. I was 17, so I'm 51. It might have been 1990.
I'm 51 too. I was born in 72, so.
Yeah. So 1990, and he had me in this bar. It was over in Indiana, and it had chicken wire all the way around it. This is my first show with him. I'm like, what in the world have I gotten into? You know what I mean? Because here I am, I'm playing one of those bars like you see in the Blues Brothers with the chicken wire around it. I was like, I wonder if these people are going to throw bottles at us or something, but nothing like that happened, you know, luckily enough. But then we played another place, and it was in Hamilton, and the guy that owned the place, he come in, he goes, hey, we're glad to have you here tonight. He goes, you're not going to believe this. This bar's, it was called Shirley's at the time. It's not there no more. He goes, this bar's got over 200 bullet holes in it. So Most of my career was playing these places back in, people would call honky tonks or gun and knife clubs. So most of my shows were in those kinds of places. But then we had times where we got to open up for bigger artists, you know what I mean? So that was cool too, And when we got those shows are the ones where I'm like, wow, I can't believe, because most of these shows we make good money, and those were shows I would have done for free just to open up for some of the people, that we got to open up for, So
Okay.
I got to see kind of a little bit of both sides of it, more of the honky tonko than the other side of it.
So performing with your dad, how was it? Like, was that something that you really wanted to do, or would have rather been kind of like hanging out with, doing what the other kids your age would have been doing?
At the time, I was like, it was more just about the money.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's like I could play 3 nights a week, and I made $62.50 a night, 3 nights a week. And there was people I knew that was working in a factory. It was only bringing home $150 a week. So I was
Wow.
bringing home more playing music than some people were at that time bringing home from factory, working in a factory. So I more or less got in for the money. I really didn't like the country music when I first started it. And the more I played it, the more I really appreciated its roots, its similarity, and a lot of people wouldn't identify with this, but I've seen the similarity, and even in culture, as in my dad was born in a shack in the mountains of Kentucky, no running water, no modern conveniences, well water, and he was put in the fields like at 4 and 5 years old to help, pick crops and stuff like that. So, and then where I grew up, I mean, it was a very poor neighborhood too. It was called the Knob. And when we first moved in, it's what I called a hillbilly ghetto. And people said, what do you mean? I was like, there wasn't, it was in the city, but half of it didn't have sewer systems yet.
Okay.
So people had outhouses, and they had outhouses built in their garages, or they had them out back. There's one guy that was in the neighborhood we called Chicken George. He lived in a chicken coop, had like plexiglass in it. One side was his chickens, and he was living on the other side. And he'd walk around carrying his rooster. You have like chickens running all over the place too, And then you had, and this is not in the country. This is, kind of like in the city. And so, and that music, and my dad was influenced, and I became very influenced too, was not just from the country artists, but from the blues artists. You know what I mean? A lot of the R&B. He had a voice that he could just transcend and fall into anything, and not changing his voice to sound like the other person. It just fit with whatever he did. If he sang a Percy Sledge song, he could sing. I mean, he could do it. Or he could turn around and do a George Jones song, and he could smash it. But he ain't trying to sound like the artist. He's just singing in his own tone and making it his own. And that's something else I tell a lot of people. A lot of people, they do cover songs, they always want to try it. We got to do it just like the artist. And to me, it's like, if you're going to do other people's music, at least make it your own.
Yeah.
Do your own twist to it. Turn it into your own unique version of that song, because everybody else has heard that other version 1,000 times. You come up with something a little different, makes it better. But yeah, we had a lot of influences like in that, and you can see it because we got music. It's kind of multi-genre too, So if you get onto like iTunes or Apple iTunes or any of the streaming services and type in Tatoo Billy, you'll see a lot of our albums out there, because we've been recording since way back and stuff. We was on a little bit of there's a little independent record label out of California that had us for a while, and they released all of our stuff, and then they wound up going out of business, but everything reverted back to us, so it was up on all the platforms. So which was kind of good, because we didn't have to pay for any of it to get out on the platforms. But then we revert it now to anything we release it off CD, baby. and stuff, which is it's one of the earlier groups of people that would release your music and distribute it and stuff like that. But yeah, it's been a good run, and like I said, I'm back at it again. We're building it back up again, getting ready to start performing live shows. We're just right now working out like what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, how many originals. Naturally, we're going to have to do some covers because we're going to be playing bars, but we make sure we're going to, mix them with the sets. We're going to have originals mixed in with them. But we're good with the covers too, because my wife sings everything from Led Zeppelin to she sang Joan Osborne, Pat Benatar. She could sing all that stuff. She's like a really good singer. So we give a good mix. So we might go from a country song and you might hear a Led Zeppelin song too, so kind of like a jukebox. You're going to hear a little bit of everything.
Okay, cool. All right. So before we get out of here, let the people know where they can find you.
If you just go to any of the streaming services, type in Tatoo Billy, and it'll everything should pop up. You can go to Hear Me Now, Frisky-whiskey. It's the new single. It's got all the streaming for that. You can go to YouTube, type that in. You get to see Jonathan Joss from King of the Hill and Tulsa King and Magnificent Seven, all kinds of different movies. And appreciate you having me on. And everybody keep on country rocking.
All right. Thank you for joining us, and you have a great evening.
You too. Thank you for having me on.
Later.
Work was crime. I've been doing time. Tattooed